We've had Vegetos in Dragon Ball Legends, we've had Gogetas in Dragon Ball Legends, but could you imagine having both of them on one unit? This idea comes from a viewer called Sanskar, and I'm actually very annoyed that I didn't think of this myself. But in this video, we're going to be discussing this fun idea, not as if it's actually going to drop in Legends, but it's something that is definitely possible with the potential we've already seen in game. When you get to the end of this video, in the comment section, let me know what you think about it and add more details based on the things that I give you, as there's a lot of creative potential with this one unit. Let's get into this. So right here, I'm just going to lay out the idea clear and cut. This would be an ultra unit that's a tag unit. It would be the first of its kind, assuming they don't choose to do something else, but that would increase the bar in itself. But the idea is, depending on which character you synchro on, you will get a different fusion. So if you press the synchro button with Goku, you will end up as Vegito. But if you synchro with Vegeta, you will end up as Gogeta. It could be vice versa, but that's besides the point. It's just to get the idea that depending on which character, the main character or the deuteragonist, Goku or Vegeta, depending on which character you press that synchro button on, the synchro mechanic that we got in the 6th anniversary featuring fusing Super Vegito and fusing Gogeta Blue, you press that button and you will end up as one of the fusions, putting both of them on one unit. It should go without saying that this would be a Game Originals unit, and they could have some interactions or voice lines, very short and sweet, that show their interaction of what fusion they're going to. And then if you wanted to put icing on the cake, we could take different versions of Goku and Vegeta and put them on a tag unit. For example, it could be Goku from the Fusion Reborn movie, and it could be Vegeta from the Future arc. Their differences in clothing would make it a lot more apparent for what fusion you're going for, so people wouldn't forget, but it would be in their kit regardless. And just off this, you can already see the potential is limitless. What version of Goku do you want to go? What version of Vegeta do you want to go? Then what version of Gogeta do you want to have? What version of Vegito do you want to have? Me personally, I think it would be best to have them be both base. We don't have any ultras of the Fusion Warriors in base. They always have to be in their transformed states, so this would be the one of where we see them fighting in their base forms. And that pretty much wraps up the kit, but there's a lot more details that we can get into surrounding this unit, so let's do that. Now, just for some justification, even though I don't think this is a thing they're going to pull out, if we was to make the case as for why this could be a thing in the 7th anniversary, we'd have to point out these factors. First off, we've got 4 transform units so far in this celebration. Specifically referring to the headliners, we got Goku and Vegeta, and we got Goku and Vegeta. Let me be a bit more specific. We got MUI Goku in part 1 alongside with SSBE Vegeta, transforming from UI Sign into MUI and going from Super Saiyan Blue to Super Saiyan Blue Evolution. And then in part 2, we got Goku going into his Kaioken form, and then Vegeta, it's a revival layer where he turns into a stronger version of Vegeta basically. Let's just call it 8 Vegeta, but it's not exactly. With these characters so far, people have been thinking they've been pulling out Gokus and Vegetas for the whole celebration. But it's important to note that in part 1, they chose Goku and Vegeta as allies, but in their strongest forms. And then in part 2, they chose Goku and Vegeta as rivals or enemies in their earliest forms at the beginning of DBZ. But then for part 3, people have been thinking they're going to take a different direction. So it could be that we see the GT versions of them, Super Saiyan 4 Goku and Vegeta, where they have the exact same form. Or in another sense, they could literally become one, making them either Gogeta or Vegito, which is also neither Goku nor Vegeta.
I'm neither Goku nor Vegeta. I'm just gonna take you down.
But still at the same time, Goku and Vegeta, concluding the 7th anniversary. What amazing writing this is. Obviously, this is very optimistic, and I'm not gunning it as a serious idea, but if I wanted to justify it, just for the conversation's sake, this is how I would go about it, and I think it's not too ridiculous. But of course, they could just drop 2 separate ultras, one being Gogeta, one being Vegito. But that's just to add some layering, given that we are in the 7th anniversary. If you wanted to take this seriously, which I am not, it's just a fun idea. Now, let's address the potential within this unit. What Goku and Vegeta would you guys want on this unit? And that's only the first step. There's animations between both of them that you could have, just like the synchro units in the 6th anniversary. Me personally, I would want it to be that Vegeta is from the Future arc and Goku is from the Fusion Reborn movie. So to be more specific, it would be the Vegito Blue and Super Gogeta. But for me personally, if we was going into their fusion states, I would want them both to be in base form. I wouldn't want a Super Gogeta and I wouldn't want a Vegito Blue, because because I feel like we've had a lot of these in Dragon Ball Legends, but for premium characters, besides from the recent 2024 festival where we get a transforming Vegito Blue, he starts off as base where he ends up in his transformed state. When they drop Fusion Warriors, they always capitalize on the idea that they transform into these powerful transformations, Super Saiyan or Blue. Well, I think it could be a nice touch if they keep them both in base or in a transformation that we haven't seen before, like Super Saiyan God. But I'm more leaning towards the base, so I just don't overdo it. But this is for fun, so maybe we should go for the Super Saiyan God. Anyways, you then have to think about what their moves would be. Now for simplicity, I am not going to be adjusting their kits on either side to do different things. I think that this would cause a war, because if one side is better than the other, why would anybody use the other side? I feel like Vegito should do the exact same things as Gogeta, but with different animations. So they're keeping it very simple, but more so allowing you to have both units on one unit for the aesthetic purposes. For example, if you was to take my Vegito in this case, I would design Vegito to have a final Kamehameha, so it's a blue card because he's a transforming unit, there would be no ultimate on this unit, and when he hits the final Kamehameha, he gets an animation that allows him to bring out the spirit swords and he'll dual wield them and it'll be beautiful, something we've never seen before. But then if we go over to the Gogeta side, he would do a final flash similar to what they had in Dokkan Battle, but if it hits, you get the extra animation where he then brings in a Soul Punisher. Because these are ultras, they don't have a legendary finish or anything like that, so the blue card itself can just be super outstanding, and I think that would be enough. We could also take their green cards. If we're taking my Vegito, I think he should have a counter, he should be able to counter strikes and blast, and you can pretty much just take him having similar animations to Ultra Vegito Blue. But then on the Super Gogeta side, but in this case he would be base for me, they can just rip the DBS Broly movie source material, so if it's a blast card coming his way, it will be it's futile, but if it's a strike card, it could be the flips that he done against Broly when he kicked him. The cards will do the same thing, but they will be designed in a different format, so for the aesthetics purpose, the audience can be fully satisfied no matter if they are more liking to Vegito or Gogeta. Nobody would have to argue about who is better. If I was to add more context on why I think this design is the perfect way to go about it, if we look at the 7th anniversary, they've been splitting us up quite a bit, and the last time they done this was the 1st anniversary. If you don't know what I'm referring to the fact that they've been making us pick sides based on choices of what we'd rather have or be. In part 1, they gave us the decision to choose between instant transmission and flying, and instant transmission was the winner. And in part 2, we know what's gonna win. We got the choice between Son Family and Vegeta Clan. But with this Fusion Warrior, it would go against that. So you do have the choice, and it's not about who wins, it's just the idea that you have a choice, and that's what makes it fun. But you won't have to choose, because you would have both fusions that everybody loves so dearly, where there are still some people who are bored of having them separately. You would have them on one unit, so in this match, if you're feeling Gogeta, you can turn into Gogeta. But in the next match, you could use the same unit, but if you're feeling Vegito, you can turn into Vegito. Everybody's happy. The Fusion haters wouldn't be happy, but this would bring in so much money because all the Gogeta fans will be spending, while all the Vegito fans will be spending, while the playing experience would also just go well. As if you're free to play, you won't have to consider one or the other. You can just aim for one thing, and once you get that one thing, hopefully you will end up satisfied. Now, the last thing I want to mention is that this is very healthy for the game. Now, I know that might sound insane because everybody's imagining this unit to be cracked, but I'm also thinking about the gameplay experience from a developer's perspective. A lot of people like to think that the developers do not need money, but I feel like them building a unit like this would bring them money, and that allows them to further develop more creative things. I mentioned this before, but in the 5th anniversary, they got top grossing 2 times, I think 3 even. So we had Ultra Vegito Blue giving them top grossing, and then we also had Ultra UI giving them top grossing. And then in the next year, the budget very apparently goes up and we get 2 fusing Fusion Warriors with the synchro mechanic. We've never seen anything like that before, and we get the best anniversary to date in my opinion, but a lot of people would definitely attest to that as well. But that can only happen if they get top grossing. I do see how some people can easily see it as throwing water into the ocean when you spend money on the game, but the people that do spend money on the game keep the game in business and allow them to produce higher quality things that we see in game. And with a unit like this, it's racking in the most money we've ever seen. But not just that, if we don't get this, I think it's a very large idea in conversation that we would just get 2 ultras. Well, I think if they did this, they wouldn't have to drop 2 ultras, which means that you wouldn't have to deal with the horrendous ultra rates at 2 different occasions. Because if it's a Goku and Vegeta again, you've got 2 ultras that are Goku and Vegeta, but you have to go for each one. Not literally, but let's say you do want both. That's already hard enough. If it's a Gogeta and Vegito, you're probably going to be even more stressed because the odds of them being great is so high, and you probably won't get them because of the ultra rates. But at least if it's this unit, it would only be 1 ultra ban manner, so you don't have to split your odds, which are already low in the first place. But I guess that could all be avoided if they just fix the ultra rates. It's not an impossible thing as well, but I just think it's less likely. So I really feel like there's no cons with making a unit like this. Aesthetics wise, everybody's pleased. Unit wise, in terms of creativity, everybody's pleased. And in terms of the unit being the greatest in the game, it probably will be because they're using Fusion Warriors. So without a doubt, everybody will be using it, and that will shift the game as it should for a highest caliber tier unit in the game. Could you also imagine the reveal, the effort they could put in for this reveal? They would literally swing us to the side. Nobody would expect this. We see the Goku and Vegeta, and nobody really pays too much attention to the fact that they have different costumes, meaning they're from different arcs. But then you see them fuse into Gogeta, and it's like, oh, whatever. Or if anything, people will be thinking they made a mistake. They fuse into Gogeta, we see the animations. I'm saying Gogeta goes first this time because last time in the 6th anniversary, Vegeta went first and had everybody switching up. But cool. Then in the same trailer, we see the same characters that we thought maybe they made a mistake about in terms of their costumes, then fuse into Vegito. This would go insane. And imagine they have special voice lines to add to the fact that they're fusing into Gogeta or Vegito. So Goku will be telling Vegeta to put the earrings on, but then Vegeta will be telling Goku, I don't want to do this, but we have to. Something like that. It would easily be the best reveal of all time. That's going to be the end of the video. I could have spoke so much more about this. There's so many layers you could discuss, and this is why I said at the start of the video, you guys should leave a comment. What Goku and Vegeta would you have? What version of Gogeta would you have? There's base, there's Super Saiyan, and there's Super Saiyan again but Fusion Reborn, there's Blue, DBS Broly, and there's even Super Saiyan 4. And then with Vegito, you have Super Vegito, you have base Vegito, you have Vegito Blue. You could even go the heroes route with Super Saiyan 4, which is quite unrealistic, but it's possible. The potential is truly limitless, and we haven't even considered the moves they would have as well, which you guys can also choose from. There's so much source material to pick from, but there's also custom animations which we just might not see coming. Thank you Sanskar for bringing this to my attention. I'm still irritated I didn't think about it myself, but I did build on it, so hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. If you haven't already, make sure to press that subscribe button. We're on this grind to 200,000 subscribers. I appreciate you guys for watching the video, man. My name is Zakashi, guys, and I will see you guys in the next one, man.